Hi, it is Joe Mazumdar of Exploration Insights. I'm at the PDAC 2026 edition of the Metals Investment Forum. And with me right now is Brian Goldner, the Chief Exploration Officer of Talon Metals.
Thanks for having me.
Talon Metals, I visited last year. I went to Tamarack, and then recently I went to see this new addition, which was the purchase of Eagle and Humboldt Mill, making Talon now a critical mineral producer in nickel and copper. And so when viewers think about the infamous Lassonde curve, Talon is on various points of it. With the purchase of Eagle and Humboldt Mill, they are in production. And with Tamarack in Minnesota, they're in development. But what is also exciting is their exploration targets like the Vault Zone, Boulder Dash, and all these other prospects that they have in the Tamarack intrusive complex. So, Brian, how do you handle all that? And maybe which way do you want to start? Do you want to start with the exploration side or the production side, move backwards?
And I always want to start with the exploration.
Yes,
side,
I thought so. So my main interest originally was in viewing the Vault Zone. So let's talk about the Vault Zone.
Yeah, so the Vault Zone is a great new discovery. We made it by extending some drill holes that were drilled at Tamarack, popped into the massive sulfide, pushed that hole deep, ran borehole EM, saw a signal off to the side, drilled that, and hit our 35 meters of essentially 28.5, almost 29% nickel equivalent.
And also copper.
Yeah. So the grade over that full interval is, almost 15% nickel, 15% copper, and then 34 grams platinum, palladium plus gold.
Yeah, it almost has the periodic table in it between PGEs, gold, silver, nickel, and copper. And so the equivalence is out of this world. But what is driving that? Because you haven't seen that to date anywhere else in Tamarack.
We have not, no. And there's a lot of things in the vault that we haven't seen before at Tamarack. That's one of the things that makes us really excited is, frankly, we don't know what's driving that yet. We have some ideas, and that's what we're working on testing. But we have a number of models that we're kind of pushing towards. One of the really interesting things that you've probably seen us report on, outside of that massive sulfide, off on the margins, we're starting to see different minerals. So we see boronite, we see chalcocite. Those are not normal nickel minerals. So really looking to, is there a hypogene overprint? Is there copper coming in from somewhere else as well?
So when I was there, some of the excitement was there are magmatic nickel deposits with this overprint, if you call it that, with chalcocite, hypogene chalcocite. And we got to remember that when you have chalcopyrite, it's like a third of that is copper, but with chalcocite, it is like 70+%. So what are the other places that you see things like this?
Norilsk. Norilsk has, it's tough because they don't publish a lot of their stuff. So we found one Russian paper that we've been able to translate and find a similar deposit that has similar, weird high PGEs, high nickel, high copper, and then the chalcocite and boronite. So that's kind of the model that we're looking at. But like I said, we're kind of early into this research. We just commissioned some geologic studies, thin section work and things like that to try and untangle this.
Okay, so that's the Vault Zone, but there are a plethora of targets within Tamarack because it's a huge magmatic complex.
Yep.
And if we go to, let's say, Boulder Dash and stay in the exploration side of the Lassonde curve, what is that?
So Boulder Dash is a really good exploration target that's in the same dike that Eagle, the Eagle deposit, the Eagle East deposit is in. It's just 8 miles down the road. What we're seeing there is net textured, SMSU style mineralization.
Semi-massive
sulfide. And then on the 8th hole, we started to hit some massive sulfides. So that was the first indication that the system is making a massive sulfide, and that's key. When you look at how Eagle was discovered, initially it was drilled with the net textured mineralization, the semi-massive sulfide. The following year, they came back and they had their discovery hole, which was 85 meters of massive sulfide. So that's what we're looking to do at Boulder Dash is walk that mineralization kind of down plunge until we make the massive sulfide discovery.
And like, so if we go to Eagle, like I want to talk about Tamarack as well, but because we're in Boulder Dash right now, at Eagle, which I visited, it seemed like, when the magmatic complex was like subhorizontal to slightly moderate angle, that's where you got the massive sulfides. But if it was too vertical, the massive sulfides couldn't develop. So how do you look at that with Boulder Dash to think about the areas that maybe the contact between that and the wall rock? Is it a good spot to develop massive sulfides?
Yeah, I think that's one of the keys for these types of deposits is you have sulfides. The sulfides rain down. If your slope is relatively flat, then you can accumulate massive sulfides. If it's steep, it's just going to run off.
Yeah.
Some of that runoff can be good though. You can pile it up
And you
at the
can pile
bottom.
it up at what is it, the Eagle East?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So it's the same exact thing. That it's the same system. It's the same idea that comes with Boulder Dash. That's the plan.
Okay. And so getting back to Tamarack, we're jumping around a bit, but Tamarack's got its own study. It's advanced. With the changes in management, the consolidation, now you, like you said in your presentation, you guys bring the exploration excellence and they're bringing the operational excellence. So how is that going to impact Tamarack?
It's so helpful. You have a team that has operated at such a high level for 11 years. And if you give them another chance to make a mine, there are going to be things that
Like I
they're going
wouldn't
to
have done
say.
this before.
Exactly, yeah. And so you can improve, you can iterate. Whereas, normally you build a mine and then you mine that and you don't really get a second chance. So this is something that we're really excited for is bringing that team in. They've done a phenomenal job at Eagle and Eagle East, and I think that they'll do a phenomenal job at Tamarack as well.
So in the US, federal permitting has gotten easier, but in Minnesota, it's really a state issue. And there have been examples of projects in Minnesota that haven't done so well. What is the difference with Tamarack?
I think, we really focus on keeping our footprint small and listening. And it's not just hearing, but it's actually like active listening to understand what the concerns are. And then because we're we're in the EAW state, which is the early part, we can adapt. And so if we know what the concerns are, we can engineer them out or, treat them differently to kind of address the concerns. That's a really important part. And so we've been able to do that with the EW permitting process over the past couple of years. And I think we're at a point where you're starting to see the benefits of that shine through.
Right. And then you have moved the idea of the processing plant to North Dakota. And so Tamarack would only produce run of mine ore that you would build a rail spur and it would go by rail to North Dakota. So eliminating the idea of a tailings facility.
Exactly.
And then also you are housing basically the underground portal and everything else of your shipping. So controlling dust mitigation and everything like that and the view.
Yeah, dust, even things like noise and
noise.
visual light pollution, that's all really kind of contained and from being inside of a building.
Right.
So it's a thinking sort of inside the box.
Or inside the building.
Yeah. But I think I'm really proud of that work that was done.
But also, there's a really good graphic for the viewers if they look at the presentation of Talon of things that were, let's say, controversial that they have eliminated from the process, such that there's hardly anything that's controversial anymore.
Well, it's things that needed to be managed. So, contact water, anything that contacted sulfides, you have to treat that water. Basically eliminate that by putting it under a roof and just managing your storm events and managing weather. And that's where the noise pollution, light pollution, just putting, it really comes into the EAW process the state has is a really good process because it fosters communication. And when you start talking, you understand the concerns and then you can build to that.
So Eagle, when I went there, like you told me before, and like you can see volumetrically, Tamarack is very big. Eagle is not so big. So in terms of mine life, it's not as long as you would like. But the idea right now in terms of this new technical report that's coming up is to bridge the production to when you can add something new, whether it is on the Boulder Dash properties or somewhere else. Correct?
Yes. Yeah. So there's more mineralization at Eagle, that upper keel zone that we want to look at. And that's part of the technical report. The idea is to extend the mine of Eagle to bridge into operation of.
Is that 4 or 5 years? Is that the idea?
We'll have to look at the technical report when it comes out in the next couple of months.
But I noticed that it's very nickel price sensitive. So if the nickel price actually does go up, there's more volume there that you can take.
Yeah.
Yeah. But now with the copper price going up, copper is actually a significant part of the revenue as well.
Yeah, it's a copper mine now.
Yeah.
So copper has taken over slightly. That'll fight back and forth, but it's nice. This is why I like polymetallic
Yeah.
deposits.
Yeah. And so Eagle keeps going. You put out a new technical report. Tamarack, what's the next catalyst on Tamarack?
Getting out of EAW into EIS is something that we're looking to do in the first half of the year. And then the feasibility study is coming out around the same time.
Is there an opportunity to get into the Fast 41 for Tamarack?
There is. We don't have a lot of federal permits. We have the Army
Oh.
Corps 404. It's mostly state. So there's not a lot of benefit. Army Corps is not critical path.
Okay. And you don't have any waters in the United States?
Well, we do. That would be the Army
Okay,
Corps.
right.
Yeah.
Okay. That'd be the only federal part.
Yeah.
Okay. And then in terms of what you're doing on the exploration projects, what's happening with Boulder Dash and with the Vault Zone right now?
So we got 3 rigs on the Vault Zone. We're doing directional drilling. Those are our in-house drillers, in-house geophysics. So we're drilling that out this spring and then see where it goes. I really want to extend drilling at depth. One of the ways that we're thinking of the vault is that it's draining from Tamarack. And if it continues to drain, there's no reason to think that it doesn't continue to kind of plinko its way down at depth.
Yeah.
So looking for more of those pods of sulfides. On the Boulder Dash side, Michigan gets a ton of snow. Right now they're at maybe 15 feet of snow. So we have to wait for that to melt. But we'll be out in Michigan, say June, drilling there with probably 2 rigs. So we're aiming for about 5 rigs, maybe upping to 6.
So you're earning into that property. So you're going to do a minimum of like 10 or 11,000 meters.
Correct.
At Boulder
10,000
Dash?
meters.
Right. But you probably want to accelerate that if you find something.
Oh.
Because you want to.
Yeah. If we find something, we'll just throw rigs and all bets are off at that point.
Okay, so you got multiple streams of catalysts on different prospects, projects, and a mine right now. And there's obviously lots of interest in critical minerals. You now are one of the few critical mineral producers based and actually operating in the United States. So in terms of your profile's gone up so much and you're attracting probably U.S. government interest, how has that impacted you with respect to potentially funding?
That's been great. I mean, we have the $20.6 million grant from the Department of War for Find More Nickel in America. And that is, really going into Minnesota and Michigan. We've had a lot of success with that. And then, of course, the $114 million for the BMPF. But the focus is, if you want domestic nickel in the United States, Talon is your answer.
That's excellent. Okay, you heard it here first or second. Talon is your answer if you want critical minerals with this size of a company in the U.S. So thank you very much, Brian.
Yep. Thank you. Thanks for having
Brian,
me.
Chief Exploration Officer of Talon Metals, now a critical mineral producer, a developer, and also a high-end exploration company. That's it for me, Joe Mazumdar, Exploration Insights at the PDAC 2026 edition of the Metals Investment Forum. Thank you very much for listening.